Helldiver 6 Romeo, this is Scorpion Actual. Stand by for traffic, over. Scorpion Actual, this is Helldiver 6 Romeo. Send it.
Hey guys, welcome to Ground Truth by Scorpius Tactical. This is our second podcast. First one, didn't really know we were going to do a podcast. Now we are.
Now we are. And I'm here being awkward as ever.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. Between two dudes.
And now I'm here.
Yes. So
Introduce yourself.
My name's Jason. I've been here the longest. Been here since 2019. I'm the lead gunsmith, and
our resident ginger.
I am a gunaholic. Yes.
Yeah, there's only two souls in the TV right now. Cool. Thank you for joining us, Jason. Once again, Josh and Matt. Well, we're going to get into it.
So. We are going to get into it. So, first up on the to-do list, SIG.
It ends today.
Oh, does it end today?
No, it ended again today.
Yes.
Yeah,
because they doubled down.
Yeah, like as of date of recording, which is what?
13th, March 13th.
Yeah, they've doubled down on their whole P320 debacle. And what's funny is they still have yet to address the MCX.
Okay, yes, the MCX is absolutely after our own heart because of what we covered years ago now, as far as some of the issues with the MCX after the Virtus, the Spear. The 320, the issues that I see with this is that the comment that came out from them on the very first "it ends today" was basically, if you're saying that there's an issue with the 320, you're anti-gun. Yet the reportings beyond law enforcement that have been talked about have been from like competition and avid shooters. Yeah, I'm not going to say there's some like absolute like constitutionalist people, but they are mindful.
They're in this community.
They're toward firearms.
Solidly. Yeah. And it's funny because both of you guys have 320s, and we have tried. He carries it.
I do. I don't like my life.
You don't appendix carry.
I don't.
You have kids, so like you could.
Yeah. Don't like life, like your genitals. It's all good.
But I think that's the interesting thing is that yes, there are anecdotal evidence of all kinds that have not had any issues. Therefore, then that would scream that there's something within manufacturing that is having some sort of anomaly. Have you had any issues with any of yours? Which ones do you have?
So I have the P320X5 that was available right before they introduced the Legion. Never had any issues with that. I have the AXG Pro. Never had an issue with that. That one... my holster retention had come loose because I didn't have like a level 2 retention holster.
Yeah, you needed that thing.
I was in a dead sprint. Yeah, I was in a dead sprint, and it worked its way out of the holster, and I stomped on it, all 250 pounds of me. Not a single issue. And then I've also got a fire control unit in a Flux, and I've never had any issues with that. I've been nothing but happy with mine. Some of the earlier incidents that were coming out, some things didn't add up.
Did you have because your X5 is your
the first one? Yeah.
Was that before or after the whole drop thing?
That was after the whole drop test.
So you didn't have to like send that back.
I didn't have to send it in. Things had already been fine for like a year or 2 years. Since then.
How long has the 320 been out? It's now like 10 years now, right?
I think it came out 2015, 2016, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never had any issues. I enjoy shooting them. Some of the first issues I saw, there was a guy that the entrance wound to his body, it was during the draw, and he was like an NRA instructor. So obviously
he shot himself.
He might have.
That's not SIG's fault. Like he 100% shot himself.
That's what I'm saying. The entrance wound was up above the holster. So the gun had cleared the holster, and you're like, maybe he got his finger in there. I don't know, but
okay. So my question then to this is that we have real stories that are either not coming to the news, that it's happening with all kinds of guns, or there is some sort of similarity that it is coming within the 320. Now, it's not issues that we have seen personally. Now, we did have a customer who came in, law enforcement, will not say the state or anywhere that he came from, wasn't from our local. And he did unholstering in a retention holster because he was in plainclothes day. And He did. He shot through his leg, unholstering it. His wife, who was standing here,
Oh,
swore
yeah.
that she was like, he did this every night. This was nothing weird. I've never, like, I didn't see his finger toward anything. Now, again, in the instance,
None
like,
of us are perfect. Like,
but we're also not going to know like what she saw. Who knows? But I actually had somebody in the store who said, "Yeah, I shot myself." Literally, to the point where he was like, "I'm on probation because I'm new. I'm not doing anything about this until I'm out of probation."
Mm-hmm.
But this is an actual person who came into our little store in Reno.
Yeah. Well, and then you also have to consider the P320 Chicago PD edition. They had a special edition that replaced
sideways.
no, the PD edition, not the Chi-Town. No, they had a Chicago PD edition that had actually replaced the takedown lever with one that required a tool to disassemble it because they were having negligent discharges due to law enforcement attempting to clean their firearms. So it's
also Chicago.
That was something that happened. Like we got one of those for a customer, I want to say back in early 2020. So that
was before I was here.
But that had a magazine disconnect in it.
I don't know if it had a magazine.
I think it had, because they used that model, I think, in the California compliant variant.
That would make sense.
Maybe, but
so they've already had yeah.
But the one thing I remember is that you needed a tool to do the takedown lever, to get like your FCU out and stuff like that, and so that's one of those things where it was happening enough that negligent discharges were happening enough that they had a model specific for people that were having trouble with that.
Well,
I don't know. All I know is that it could be anything.
And recently, Washington State, it is not.
It's a blanket ban.
It's a blanket ban for law enforcement as far as P320. So my point to this and what I wanted to guide toward is we're watching technically a PR response, right? With a thing that's been going on for, call it 4 or 5 years, really strongly.
It's always so, as I understand it, and Jason, I'm sure you'll correct me, but the P320 minus the first couple of years out has always had something going on.
Yeah,
like whether it be the drop, whether it be the frames cracking, there's always something.
Okay, so with that being said, we have this PR that is now coming out. The comments have been fun to be within because the thing comes out, and it has been everybody from Brandon Herrera to others who have now brought other documentation saying, hey, you're saying that that everything's clear because in this one court against a Puerto Rico, I think he's a law enforcement, like they dropped the case, but everybody's coming out with things from ICE and some other things. So what are we supposed to take as a gun shop for our consumer? Like, what are we supposed to do with this information?
The only definitive thing I think we can walk away from it is there's so much unknown that the buyer has lost confidence in the P320 platform.
Yeah, we haven't sold a P320 in how long?
It's hard to sell them.
It's hard to I'm not going to recommend them because of the unknown.
Yeah, and again,
and it's not because you're saying that it's for a fact.
It's because the unknown.
Yeah.
Okay. Now with that, what is the response then? What should it be? What should the response be in this situation?
As absolutely open as possible. Here is the data. Here's our testing. Here's what we're finding.
You're talking about like bill of materials too. So like a full bomb breakdown. Hey, here's the updates that have happened to the firearm.
Information sharing.
Okay.
And
do you think they can come back from this?
I mean, they have a contract, so it's one of those contract companies where
I'm saying in the public eye though.
I think it's possible. I don't know that they're going to get there. I think it's if they were to be more transparent, and
I'm with Jason on this one.
It's possible. I'm not convinced they're going to get there.
Yeah, but possible, not probable.
Yeah,
I'm kind of with him on this one.
I agree. I just personally, there's very rarely that you deal within an industry outside of like vehicles. Obviously, that's a big thing. Like I can't remember, but the airbag thing that was an issue. Like there's big things where safety is massive. Well, our industry, absolutely. This thing is in your hand. We need to make sure it's safe. There's other retailers that like they don't have to worry about this stuff as much, right? Like they're selling just everyday goods.
Yeah.
But our job is to hopefully stay abreast of what's going on and what's happening. And right now, none of us, I think all of us agree, We don't know.
Yeah, to the point where you're considering not carrying a 320 anymore.
Yeah, because I look at the thing and I'm like, okay, am I just lucky? But how lucky can I be? I don't have that kind of luck.
Well,
and
you did
that's
drop yours and bang yours around,
Yeah.
so there is that.
something to keep in mind too is like when it comes to the manufacturer's response. I'm going to bring up the million trigger recall from Remington that took place circa 2012. They were having issues with the Remington 700 triggers going off. Now they're
It's a feature.
people made it a feature. They had an adjustable trigger in it, and it had 3 points of adjustment, but without removing the action or anything from the stock, you could only reach one adjustment screw through the trigger guard with a small Allen wrench. And so many people were like, "Oh, hey, like all I have to do to lighten this thing up is like loosen this screw." And technically, yeah, but you're not getting enough engagement on the sear. And so as people were running the bolt, they were going off. And even though that was a user error because people just didn't realize that there was 2 other adjustment screws that needed to be dealt with, Remington owned it and said, "Hey, you know what? Like we didn't make this as safe as it could be." They recalled, I think it was like over 1 million triggers.
But they didn't throw a little hissy fit on.
They didn't throw a hissy fit, like, and
that's the best way.
it cost them a lot of money, and they made it right. They redid the trigger so that if that's the only screw that you're going to adjust, you can still operate the firearm safely, even though you're not getting all the performance that you could have out of that trigger. It cost them a lot of money. Remington hasn't been doing so well since then, but at the same point in time, this when you're such a big name like that, like this is one of those things that you do.
Yeah, you take care of your customers because otherwise, like, reputation in this industry is massive. Everyone runs off reputation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that from our standpoint, the hardest part is that we are not involved in the conversations about how it's built, how it's made, what it does, yet we're the final part before that person puts it into their hands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I take very seriously, and all of us do, but it's one of those things where I'm like, wait a minute, we have to be that next level of QC that's not talked about, which is taking in as much information as we possibly can. All right, so we have an example with Remington that has seen what this does to them. They didn't come out great. SIG has a contract, very big contract. The reality is, I think my final thought on it, or like what I think the biggest thing is it's watching how response in social media is going to be taken. And the jokes today were literally like, "Oh my gosh, you're coming around for round 2." And the people who didn't say anything the first time were saying stuff today. And so,
yeah, doubling down on something where it's just blatantly false.
Right.
Like, it's been proven to be false in multiple court cases. Like, I'm not good at memorizing court cases, but it's super easy to Google.
Well, I know for a fact in 2024 there was 14 million that was awarded to people because of it. So the reality is we know that it can be. And that's it. But I think it's going to be a thing that I think we're going to be continuing to talk for a while. But,
yeah. And I will always hammer on the MCX because that was our...
Yeah, bendy barrel.
Yeah, bendy barrel.
Search it.
Yeah.
Do it.
I don't know. So many people come in asking about MCXs because we used to be known as the SIG shop. Like, this was pre-Josh, but Jason, you can attest to this. We were the SIG shop in the area.
Yeah, the Virtus was great.
Love the Virtus. 320s, Virtuses, 365s.
Yeah.
Like,
and times are changing, and
yeah,
so are we.
But I think that's the good thing is everybody should embrace it. Like some things just change.
Well, and this is why you don't lock yourself into being a brand whore. Like you have to, if you're serious about this, what's performing? I'll back that. What's not performing? Okay, I'm going to call it for what it is.
No matter what, if brand loyalty becomes blind brand loyalty, you'll get burned.
Yes.
Every single time.
Yeah. And it happens. And then if you watch the company respond to it in a great way, that loyalty can stay there. It's great.
Yeah.
It's okay to have bad products. Unsafe? Yeah.
But again, how you handle that is paramount.
Yes.
So instead of throwing a hissy fit.
Yeah.
So just kind of stepping over to the next topic because I think we kind of ran the SIG thing into the dirt. I think everyone's running.
No,
thing
SIG's
into
got
the
that
dirt.
covered.
Yeah, I think everyone's running the SIG thing into the dirt, especially SIG. I can't wait for the government to cancel their contract. Anyway, I remember last episode it was just me and Josh, and I remember touching on the civilian defense side. And if you have listened to it, great, but I have neither been there nor done that when we were talking about it. But today we have someone who has been there and done that.
Real trigger puller. If you
Yeah.
will.
I didn't do that.
I mean, he did. I know what you do on Thursdays. What?
I didn't say not a word.
Okay.
Not a word.
What's your take on the whole civilian defense industries as a combat veteran? Well, actually, what's your background in the military?
So I was a U.S. Army paratrooper in the 173rd on active duty from 2009 through 2012, and then I did 2 years in the National Guard
As an infantryman.
All as an infantryman. So that's my background. I deployed to Afghanistan late 2009 through late 2010.
So having kind of progressively didn't serve non-combat, combat served, or combat veteran, your take on the whole civilian defense industry and people being prepared, just because we see online thankfully they've kind of shut up for a minute, but the like bro vats that said you can't do that.
Oh, the Tim Kennedys and the Dakota Myers and all that stuff. Yeah. I don't care. I'll call people out.
I carried 50 grenades.
No, I'm here for the civilian defense industry. Like, I am all about it. We have a tendency to put veterans up on a pedestal and, their word is the gospel, but realistically speaking, the best.
Speaking of, we don't have a coffee.
We don't.
We
So,
got water.
if you have an edgy veteran coffee brand that you want to sponsor the show with, we would be appreciative of that. Or if edgy veteran energy drink brand, we could be open to that as well. I like the berry flavors.
Or just Mickey's.
Anyways.
If Mickey's would sponsor us, it'd be
Oh,
amazing.
Mickey's, hell yeah. Grenades, bro. Like, yes.
Is it bad? I don't know what Mickey's is.
Oh my gosh.
It's malt liquor.
Oh, sorry.
Anyways,
Okay.
no, I'm all about the civilian defense industry because, like, one of the best examples I can give is when I started at the shop in 2019. I done active duty. I deployed. I had gotten really into competition shooting. Not saying I was anything phenomenal, but I was getting out and I was shooting about 1,000 rounds a week and enjoying it. Thank you. And there was another guy that worked here at the time, and he was like really intimidated to go to the range with me because he thought, oh, I don't have any background in this. Like, I'm not going to be any good. And I finally, I kept coaxing him. I'm like, dude, I'm new into town. Like, I don't have anybody to go shooting with. Like, we should go. And so finally I got him out, and we were very on par shooting wise. And he was surprised because he had hyped up my experience in his head. Background on him, he had gone through a home invasion and had to draw his handgun on somebody. Thankfully, he didn't have to use it. But when that happened, he realized, even though he'd grown up shooting and knew how to handle a firearm, he felt really unprepared. So he started putting in the time, doing a bunch of dry fire. I mean, back then he was dry firing probably about 3 hours a week total.
A lot.
He was dry firing quite a bit, and
He's really tapered off.
he really has.
I hope he watches this.
I'm sure he
tapered off.
But in any event, like when he and I started shooting together, like I could see he was very safe with handling the firearm. He was stupid fast, and we were able to turn the training up a notch.
So that actually brings up an interesting point that I always kind of say, but again, getting your opinion on it. Shooting skill from a civilian side as compared to a military law enforcement side.
So that's what I was about to get into. Like, the stuff that he and I were doing was surpassing the type of training I was doing in the military. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that in the military, you can only move as fast as the slowest guy out there for safety's sake. When we would go out and do a live fire range, especially with any movement, there would be a crawl, walk, run progression. So crawling, you got a bunch of guys out there, bolts locked to the rear, no magazine in the weapon, blank firing adapters on, just yelling bang, 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 going through it. And then if you demonstrated your proficiency to where you were likely not to shoot somebody and have a big mishap, then they would run through it again with blanks, and you would demonstrate proficiency with blanks. And then if they were still convinced that you were likely not going to hurt anybody, then we would run through it with live ammo. And but everything was, very straight shotgun style ranges. There's no
It wasn't
lateral
dynamic
movement.
or-
No. Whereas, when Jake and I were training after a couple times shooting together, okay, I'm going to start at the front of the truck and engage that target. You're going to start over there. Then I'm going to move here. I'm going to move there. You're going to move.
Yeah.
And we were able to really turn it up a notch. And again, like, that's not something that I would do with anybody going out to the range, but he had demonstrated proficiency and safety, and I would like to think that I had demonstrated the same to him, and we were very comfortable and didn't have any issues with it.
It kind of brings up a good point though too, because I think the reality is that it's, without seeing the live application, the mindset can be, well, shoot, I haven't done this like you, so therefore I can't be. And this isn't a sport that is like, hey, go out in the front yard and go skateboard. Like, you can go see if you can
I mean,
skate.
you can do it just at once.
Yeah.
Chicago, it's fine.
So we're back to the
We got some.
The Chicago P320, yeah. No, so like, it's just interesting because this world lives in story and talking about it. Like, for a lot of other areas outside of us here, and it's getting harder here, but like going and shooting and doing that, it's not common. It's not a tons of places you can go do that.
Right. Well, and like, I won't use his name, but we have a newer customer, if you will, that has grown up shooting and hunting and stuff like that, but he's started to get more recently into, active shooting with the ARs, more handgun stuff, where it was, growing up, it was all bolt action and shotguns. And, I mean, he and I went out to the range on Monday. We both blew through probably at least 400 rounds, if not more. And
He came into the shop right after with just the biggest smile on his face.
Well, and we started by redoing his zero and stuff like that. So I mean, like, it wasn't a super intensive range day. But I bring that up because, when we talk about like trained professionals in the industry, a lot of people point to law enforcement as trained professionals with firearms. But I mean,
and there absolutely are those guys.
There are some that are phenomenal, but there's I used to work with law enforcement at my last job before here, and it's impressive how many law enforcement officers only do their minimum qualification, and that's the only time that they actually shoot their firearms, which is about I think
Twice
it's
a
like
year.
I think it's
2 or 3 times a year.
200 rounds twice a year, which is like 400 rounds total for the year.
Some are even less than that.
Some are even less than that. Whereas like this gentleman, I mean, we each dumped that on a Monday afternoon, but he just ordered a couple cases of ammo, and he's been going out every weekend dumping anywhere from 200 to 400 rounds for the last how many months. And so it's just like,
and he's taking classes,
but-
and he is
he's taking classes.
Intentional with his,
And
his
he was
range
even
time as
nervous
well.
to go out with you though, because me and him talked, and it was just more of this like, well, shoot, I've never gotten to do this, and not realizing that there's people who have gotten to go do it, who are excited to show somebody or get to go do that with somebody, that it's not the, I'm going to judge you.
Yeah, I'm not going to gatekeep this. My entire goal being here is wanting to get other people as excited about shooting as I'm excited about shooting. I've got a little sinister plan as far as my ulterior motive for my hidden agenda, because the more people get involved in this, in my opinion, that's more people that we can grow on our side of the legal fight in all of this.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But I mean,
Which
realistically,
I think we're going to touch on even more of that, and that's why it's such a big fight.
Hey, sorry for the quick interruption, but if you enjoy this content and want to see more, please do let us know. And then also, if you want to know the best way to support us here at Scorpius Tactical is to come by the shop or visit us online at scorpiustactical.com and let us either build you a pretty sick gun or help you in all your tactical endeavors. Thanks. And now back to the show.
Okay, so we kind of went down the rabbit hole on the legal side. Just to kind of broad strokes legally, anything you're excited for?
No.
No? Okay.
I was really optimistic there for a minute with well,
All right, we're done.
you asked, I'm going to give it to you straight.
No,
I was
I'm
really excited
100%.
with I was really cautiously optimistic with Trump's Pro 2A executive order. But last I heard, as of yesterday morning, the deadline for Bondi and Patel to bring to his attention any frivolous cases that needed to be thrown out.
Did they even pull one case?
No, they hadn't.
Okay.
They hadn't submitted anything. The deadline had come and gone,
So,
and
in fact, that DOJ actually put a gag order on one of the cases over in like Maine or something like that.
I saw something about that.
I don't know enough about it, but it's just
No.
like it. I'm less than enthusiastic.
Yeah, it kind of almost seems like more.
politicians doing politician things, like,
It kind of seems like more of the same.
yeah.
You feel like the rug's starting to pull out from under you before you fall on the ground.
Yeah.
So-
And I was really excited. Again, my one hope was reciprocity. I don't know.
Again, I think as of right now, the legal side, I will come back to exactly what Jason said. Bringing more people into this, and you heard me talking today with a customer. I was like, the more people we bring into this, it allows for us to steadfast the Constitution. But I don't know. All I know is that we are seeing more people more interested, and that's a great thing.
People that you would not expect to ever become interested.
And so if we're having that, we just need to be absolute welcoming as an industry to
And-
bring these people in right.
And flood them
Yes.
with education.
So
Like-
kind of on that same point, newer shooters coming in, we're always having the conversation of a built-out rifle, or not a factory-built rifle versus a quote-unquote Frankenstein build. I know I'm kind of shifting it here, but what would you, in terms of a Frankenstein build, being our head gunsmith, what are the pros and cons of going that route, and why would somebody do that over a factory-built rifle, or vice versa?
As a guy that just loves putting these things together, like I will always advocate for the Franken builds. Granted, there needs to be some thought process in your part selection, but
Yeah, using good quality parts.
yeah, Franken build. I mean, the term in and of itself has kind of like a negative connotation because, when we think about Frankenstein's monster, it was a bunch of rotting pieces put together.
Well, that was
and all that.
Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein was a genius, so
Right.
obviously.
Right, but like you can do really cool things with these, and no one company has all the right answers. And so therefore, like
Are you
I'm
kidding
all
me?
about.
Daniel Defense has the logo.
They've got the logo, and
No,
they've got the logo.
yeah.
They've got the really cool but albeit god awful priced handguards as well.
Yeah, they're a cool color.
They're
But you know who has that color too?
lots of other people.
Griffin.
Griffin,
Yeah.
Cross Machine Tool,
Mhm.
lots of other
Oh.
options. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, no. To your point, like I was talking about this today to a new guy coming in, and he was looking at ARs and asking the difference between builds and buy, or buying off the wall. And I was telling him, like, you can pick and choose. Like, if you want to go balls to the wall and make your money go the furthest it can, we can pick and choose the best part that BCM makes, which is their upper.
Mhm.
We can choose the best part that Geisling makes or whatever. So we can pick and choose the best parts and put it together into like an awesome burrito.
Right, and that's what I like to do. Just because if you're really going to start tailoring different firearms for different use cases, different tools for different jobs, you can really hone in by saying, hey, like this Geisling trigger is going to be absolutely the best for that. But instead of doing this entire Geisley rifle that has that specific Geisley trigger in it, you can get a barrel from a different manufacturer that might be better suited for what you're doing, whether it be coyote hunting, long distance, competition, you name it.
Or you can just make it look the way you want.
Or you can just make it look the way you want. Like
You could put red anodized parts on there. And
you really can. If that's your prerogative, you can absolutely go to your local gun shop and buy a bunch of Chinese parts.
Pull
And,
this around.
I'm in.
So, okay. The builder world always thought like, hey, there's savings in it. Initially, like if you really look, like a lot of times people talk about the savings in building the fire.
I think there still is savings.
No, there is, but it's more of the why is there savings, because you're not removing a part that you paid for and replacing it with the part that you want.
that you also have to pay for.
Correct.
Yeah.
So paying for triggers twice is kind of dumb.
So there's that, but then also think about, because there are manufacturing companies out there, but then there is also like builder companies out there, and I'm not going to drag anybody's name through the mud, but we've had people ask, well, what do you think about this company's rifles? And you'll look up what they're talking about, and it's just like, okay, they didn't manufacture a single part on here. Like they're using nice parts. They're using whatever Midwest handguards and this trigger and that
Usually
bull carrier group and stuff.
So it's a Frankenstein build with a part number.
It's a Frankenstein build with a part number under an umbrella of made by this company, and like, yeah, I'm sure they're put together very nicely and stuff like that. But when you look at what they're selling that rifle for, and then you're like, wait a minute, at full MSRP, I can total up all these parts, and we're like $600 short.
You can total up the parts and have a professional gunsmith build it, and it comes out $500 cheaper.
Yeah. Or, if you're like me and you like to tinker with stuff, you're $500-600 short, and then now you've got money to buy good gunsmithing tools, and you can put that one together yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you go to build the next one, you've already got the tools. So now you're just saving $500-600 on the next one.
Okay, so let's say for the person who maybe falls on this show and is like, okay, I am intrigued. I bought my first AR just like all of us with blank brand.
Yep.
I have that one. But the next one I wanted to have more purpose to it, or now I've got to shoot and I have an idea. If you had to pick, I'm going to make 3, you have to pick 3 parts that you're like the most focused on that you're going to put into this AR. And I'm not talking about optics, a whole different world.
So
but 3 of the build parts that you're like, these are where I'm going to spend money. Where do you think they get the most bang for their buck out of those 3 things? And 3 is a terrible number for this.
3 is a terrible
number.
It is, but better if I did 4.
Nope.
Yeah.
I want to do 3 because it makes you really, it's going to make
I'll give you 3 and a runner-up. Barrel, bull carrier group, and trigger.
That's the big 3.
Those are the big 3. The runner-up would be upper receiver, because if we're doing a precision build, getting an upper, we're going to bring up BCM because they're the most notable ones, but getting an upper that uses a thermal fit where you have to heat it up.
What is a thermal fit?
I was getting there.
Okay.
Where the upper receiver extension is tighter. So you actually have to heat it up with a heat gun in order to get the barrel in there. And then when it cools down, it grips the barrel tighter. There's not any slop in there, and it dampens the harmonics, and it makes for a more accurate rifle. That can go a long way. There are ways to replicate that. If you have an upper that's not a thermal fit, you can bed the barrel.
Or if you have a nicer barrel with a receiver extension that is oversized, that replicates.
Yeah, like
it.
Criterion's known for.
For the oversized barrel extensions or ballistic advantage.
Ways to get there.
Yeah, ballistic advantage will also do like a nickel Teflon coating on the barrel extension, which will thicken it up and get you most of the way, if not all the way there on that as well.
See, I will bring it back to the big 3. I'll 100% agree with you on the big 3. Barrel, bolt carrier, and trigger. That if you're balling on a budget, or even not balling on a budget, but you want to just dump all your money in one place, those are the 3 to do it. Your runner up though, I will say a upgraded recoil system. So an A5, a hydraulic, a case-back over an upper.
You're definitely going to notice a lot more niceties. That's like
a whole different performance section of it.
Yeah, because we also
that's my runner-up.
Well, we also didn't get parameters of like what kind of rifle we're building, but the recoil system. Like I always talk to people about the difference between niceties and necessities. You can do a mil-spec spring and a mil-spec buffer and a carbine buffer tube, and
It'll work.
it'll work.
run. Yeah.
It'll run. It'll do what you want it to do. You start going A5 systems. You start doing hydraulics. You go for the king of the castle and do the hydraulic A5 system, or like JP silent captured buffer systems.
We'll talk about
Um,
that later.
You can definitely improve the experience of shooting the weapon, and that can translate to performance, i.e., if it recoils softer and the target stays in the reticle while we're shooting for at distance and stuff. Like these can be performance enhancers for sure, but I also just think about how much more pleasant it makes it to shoot a rifle that's
Well, I think
gone through
both
that.
of our runner-ups kind of speak to more of our interest. Like you're accurizing the thing to get, gnat's ass, where I'm going for better recoil management for just going faster. And I think that just speaks to the different person.
Mhm.
So
It's different use cases, or it's different how you want to run it. I think the interesting thing from my standpoint, looking not outside the company, but watching what interactions you guys are having, accurization is something being talked about way more now. Where like that build you just did, where it's like talking about making sure that we're looking at where the gas tube is interfacing with the gas key and trying to take any pressure off of that, never really thinking about how much that could be putting pressure onto the gas block. Like we're for these guys who are trying to accurize gas guns as best they can.
Well, and there's something to that, but I'll also point out, like, accurizing as a talking point, it's also one of those things too where like the shooter has to be honest with themselves, because
yeah, the gun can only do so much. Like the shooter's got to do their part.
the shooter's got to do their part, and we do get a lot of newer people where, I mean, yeah, you definitely want a gun that outperforms you, that you can grow into, but you get some people that oh, I need this to be as accurate as possible, but
Yeah,
Eve-
proof 11.5 barrel.
I don't know if I'm going to say like a Bear Creek Arsenal barrel, but just like a cheap a cheap
An OEM
functional
Yeah.
OEM barrel,
Yeah.
they're not going to the shooter is not going to outperform that barrel. And so that will also lend credence to your runner up versus my runner up, but it also just
It's
depends
use
on
case dependent. It's personal dependent.
precisely.
Like you said, it's all build dependent. Of hey, am I building a 6mm arc gas gun? Yeah, I'm not going to care as much about my recoil system. Like if I can do both, I'm going to do both, but I'm going to focus on making sure it's just as accurate as I can humanly get it.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like a standard quote unquote fighting AR. Yeah, I'm probably going to go on the side of the recoil system because it has an acceptable level of accuracy for what it's used for. And I would rather have the softer recoil impulse so I can get more shots on target very quickly.
Yeah, priorities of the build and use case are definitely going to be factors worth considering on that.
Yeah. Which is why I also talking about the Frankenstein build a lot. I mean, the one video we've done the 14.5, we've done the 13.7, and we've done the 12.5 YouTube videos.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at how like viewership and everything, I think everybody's always searching for the like perfect Frankenstein build, or what is the length, what is this, and the reality is it's so dependent on the shooter. We can hopefully guide people.
Okay, let me tell the answer for the perfect barrel.
Oh,
There's two of them. It's either a 12.5 or a 16 at this point.
Okay, that we will cover that again. We will cover that. But with my whole thought is that with the newer shooter coming in, there's so much information that they're looking up online. I would hate trying to buy a gun right now for the first time.
Oh, it's information overload.
Absolutely.
Because you can't filter out what's true, what's false, what's kind of true.
Yeah, who knows what they're talking about.
Or that there's truths in everything that those people are saying, but they're also, well, wait a minute, where am I using that? It's looking at vehicles.
Well, people need to start asking the why across the board.
Yes.
Why do I need this? Why do I want this?
Why is this so expensive? Is it that much better, or is it a name? Oh, it's that much better? Cool. That makes sense.
Why is the government tyrannical? It's a whys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's why the guns absolute power.
Yeah. Corrupts absolutely.
Yeah. So,
yeah. The Frankenstein thing I think is so overwhelming because for one, a build overwhelms the consumer when they have never done it. And I think that's one thing that I'm so proud of is that at a minimal cost, like we've allowed for people to adapt or not adapt, but like get involved with the builder side, but not have to go spend all the money for all the tools to do it properly. And quite honestly, the ones who really get into it, they do end up building their own. And then they learn from us. And like you're willing to go through it with them. You're willing to go through. It's not like a kept secret.
Yeah, we've brought people in the back before. And
so because they wanted to see how it worked, and they end up having a bigger passion for it. And so again, like this is the full circle of like bringing people into this, because from the legal side, we can fight better and fight harder when more people are around it. The builder side is a really cool way to showcase what these things do. And I will say that most of these customers who have never really shot a lot say they have more understanding about their firearm because of this process than had they just went and bought a gun.
Well, yeah, because like that's the thing. I'm not here to gatekeep any information. I'm more than happy to. We've had customers where, hey, I want to get into this. I'd like to build several of them, but like, can I watch it? I'll explain what it is that I'm doing. They can watch me build their the first firearm that they do, and even though I can make money building their subsequent firearms, if you're more aware of how all these pieces come together and function, if you're out shooting and you have a hiccup, you have a malfunction, you have whatever, you're better capable of dealing with that in the field. You can get back to shooting faster, and then I can be here at the bench building another rifle for an even newer shooter that's starting their journey.
Most likely a friend of theirs.
Yeah, most likely a friend of theirs.
That's what it always ends up being, is like, okay, now I got to get into this. But you just said like how all these things work. Like listening to an RSO over in the Bay Area, over south of San Jose, talking about how often they are doing clearing stuff, and because these people don't know how to use them. And that will normally be the argument of people are like, oh, we just need to end it. Like those people, or not end it, but like those people shouldn't have firearms. It's like, no, like this is the time to be teaching. And I just will never turn my back on that. I just think anytime that we can educate and get people excited through education, like we're here for it.
So kind of wrapping up the whole Frankenstein thing and more to the customer education point, which we were just talking about. One, it's my favorite part of the job. Is the education piece is my favorite part of the job. But giving people the tools to go out, empower them to be confident in their purchase, but also to kind of grow in this if they want, and if not, be confident in that one rifle they have.
Yeah, and assist them in the way of like slow playing it. I think they're so overwhelmed where they add everything up and they're like, okay, so if I get into this, it's $4,000. And I'm not kidding. You can literally add that up very quickly.
Oh, it
depends on certain parts. Very quickly. And the reality is no, we can get you going, and you can not have the mistakes that we've ever made, or that all, the industry, like, oh, I bought this first or whatever. Yeah. And we can avoid that. And if we can help people avoid that and be good stewards of their money, the industry wins.
Yeah. And not enough, I'd say not enough manufacturers hold that mindset.
No, but 2025, 2026 is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's coming to a head, honestly.
Well,
like as far as the brand stuff.
Well, I mean, it's like Lucas from T-Rex, right? When Trump won, he called it out. It was like, oh, now all these other manufacturers aren't going to have a Democratic presidency to bail them out.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. I mean, like we've seen there are certain brands that develop brand equity in one way or another, and then we're just, our rifle's a $2,500 rifle. Is it though?
But that's how those brands eventually just die.
Yeah.
But we could, and this isn't like just the gun. This isn't a gun industry thing. This is brands, period.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at shoes. We can look at, from my world as far as action sports, skate, snow, surf, all the time. There's tiny little shapers who make amazing surfboards in all the surf towns up and down California. They're not massive. Guys will swear that they outperform all the big names, but the big names come with brand equity, and so those are more expensive. But that small guy still, there's really good ingenuity in the AR platform coming out of small little shops, and I think that's what I love. It doesn't. The AR does not allow for one person to be like, "Oh, that's our platform," at all.
I agree.
Yep. But I think we rambled long enough. for tonight,
Yeah.
at least. But Jason, I'm sure you'll be coming back on
Yeah.
frequently.
Yes,
But thank you for
of course.
Well, go ahead.
okay, close it out.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think something that we should do next is lead up for like 2 weeks. We should take in the questions. We do weird Ask Me Anythings or
we
anything,
do, yeah.
and we could bring that into this because yes, we'll get funny comments and funny questions, but I think there's better questions that come from the consumer than people who are just behind a gun counter, because we do have a certain lens that we're looking through or a certain vantage point.
We're always reacting.
So we should, I think, so think about that. If you have questions that you want to hear, nitpicked or brought, maybe something that needs to be brought up to the industry that doesn't get talked about, like, we're not going to avoid it. So
Yeah, and it could be firearms related, legal related, anything like that.
yeah.
Why is Jason a ginger related?
That's genetics, man. I can't do it.
But
Gingetic.
okay,
I have a severe case of gingivitis.
okay. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to Ground Truth by Scorpius Tactical. If you liked it, share it with somebody, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.